The views and opinions expressed by hosts, invited speakers, and callers do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of the Black Talk Media Project or the Black Talk Radio Network.
We always say the Black Panther Party that they can do anything they want to do. We might not be back. I might be in jail. I might be anywhere. But when I leave, you remember I said, with the last words on my lips, I am a revolutionary.
Revolution comes with a price tag. You a slave to a flag in a country that clearly doesn't love you when they probably never have. Told you turn the other cheek, and they made it with a bat. Fucking protesting them sit-ins. Told you go fight in the war. Vietnam, you died good riddance. That man of the house rule took you from your siblings. Turned around and pump crap right up in your did it. And they turned all your leaders to martyrs. You was off in the war, now who was guarding your daughters? It was riots in the streets, killed Malcolm and Martin. Called the National Guard up because we ride with our guard up. And now it's building your guard. The Second Amendment don't apply to you. Everything that they taught you was a lie to you. See, they scared of your skin and they dying to shoot. Take the American dream and then you die to pursue. One day it'll all make sense. If it ain't about power, then it don't make sense. But none of that money matters when you live in madness. So one day you figure out that all you got is this. Peace, love, and the middle finger. Right on. Peace, love, and the middle finger. Right on. Peace, love, and the middle finger. Right on. Peace, love, and the middle finger.
Good afternoon. You are tuned in to Black Talk Radio News. My name is Scotty Reed. I'm broadcasting from behind the enemy lines that I call USA Inc. Today's date is December the 24th, 2015. It is a Thursday afternoon. Lots of people are getting prepared for the Christmas, which will be tomorrow for those that celebrate Christmas. I noticed that a lot of people, not only in Minneapolis, Black Lives Matter movement, I'm seeing people in Chicago who are still out there protesting. They're not out there doing any kind of holiday shopping, but they are out there blocking the entrances to malls and whatnot to bring attention to the fact that black people in this country are being preyed upon. They're being gunned down in the streets. And for those who listen to our program, New Abolitionist Radio, you know that we painted in the context of modern slavery and human trafficking. So I'm looking at, all the different protests that's going on out there during this holiday shopping season. And of course, a lot of people are still saying, we need to be boycotting and not filling the pockets of these corporations so that they can support laws that, subjugate us. Again, like places like Walmart that uses prison slave labor. So when you get those Christmas gifts that you don't want and you want to return them and whatnot, for a credit or for an exchange, well, if you open the package and whatnot, then it has to be repackaged. It has to be repackaged. And companies like Walmart uses prison slave labor to do that. And so I just want to give a shout out to the activists that's on the job. They're not taking the holiday season off, and they're out there doing what they should be doing, and that is advocating to make Black Lives Matter in this country. Now, we do have a guest scheduled for you today. Today is a Black Business Spotlight. We'll be talking to one of the founders of the WEJ Foundation. You can visit them online at wejfoundation.org. We will be speaking to Chevonna Johnson. She is an advocate, advisor, liaison, public speaker, community leader, counselor, mentor, and a voice for the promotion and support of education, which leads to self-esteem, awareness, and also advocates for research on social and psychological things that pertain to human awareness. She also works on promoting awareness about bullying, domestic abuse, suicide awareness, intervention, prevention. And so she is engaged in a whole lot. She has a whole lot on her plate. And we look forward to speaking with her in just about 6 minutes here. Now, on the issue of education, I came across a YouTube video of Chairman Fred Hampton, who was assassinated by the Chicago police. I believe it was either in 1968 or 1969. I can't remember the exact date. And he was talking about the importance of education, and he was talking about the importance of not being reactionary, and that oftentimes when, people want to engage in what they call revolutionary action, if they are not educated, they, are likely to become the oppressor. And I just thought that this was very enlightening. So as we get ready to talk to Miss Johnson about the work that she does in so many different areas, she's wearing a whole lot of hats. So we want to go ahead and let you listen to what Fred Hampton, one of the founder of the Chicago chapter of the Black Panther Party in the 60s, in 1968. So let's go ahead and listen to him on the importance of education prior to taking action.
In my ideology, basically, in yours, you can support some of our programs. Is that what you're saying?
Why not?
And you believe in programs like the Breakfast of Children program and free health clinics? Right on, brother?
We believe they're good things.
Uh-huh.
As a focal point to organize their mothers and fathers.
Uh-huh.
Peace.
Mm-hmm. There's no educational program here?
That's come out of the social action thing. You set that up first. I mean, we can't put everything on one piece of paper.
What about this bank?
Credit union?
Mm-hmm.
Credit union. Credit union, my brother.
Is a bank.
Are you hip to credit unions? It is a bank.
Yeah, you go and borrow money?
Yeah, it's a bank. It's a bank. Owned by the people. Run for the people. And by the people.
Mm-hmm. What will money be given out to people for?
Well, the people would decide that. You want to buy, whatever, the people in the community decide. You need some living room furniture, maybe? You need a car, maybe?
See, the thing is with me, you dig, I need to know some more about it. I wish you had some more literature about the education thing. Because, you dig, as far as we're concerned, in struggle, when we look at struggle, is that this depends on the education thing, you dig. Because
this depends on the education. Well, the whole thing.
No, but in the end, this does. You can form this with no education. You can form this.
No, not the way we're talking about forming it. Right. We're talking about forming it right. It's not on the paper. We didn't write it on the paper.
Form it right.
No.
Let me give you an example. Yomo Kenyatta formed the excellent revolution with no education. And on the day of the end thing, Yomo told the motherfucker, I said, well, you can educate, hate the enemy, but I'm your brother. I'll help you lead the revolution. Now I'm more pressure. Another example, Papa Doc in Haiti. Papa Doc in Haiti hated everything white. Man, you couldn't put this white paper in front of Papa Doc's face, but he moved all the white people out and he took over and be oppressed. He did, causing no education. And the people that had been educated, they said that we don't hate the motherfucker white people, we hate the oppressor, whether he be white, black, brown, or yellow. We got to know the educational program to find out what it's going to be in the finale. A lot of people, Yomo Kenyatta is called never a revolutionary, but an ex-revolutionary. So it's Papa Doc. They brought on a successful revolution. That thing in the Mama was a bitch. Bantu freedom fighters, all that kind of action. What we're saying is the end. But you don't judge Castro now. You can't do it. Nobody in this room could judge whether Castro's going to be a revolutionary or not. You know what I mean? We're talking about things, you know what I mean, with China, the People's Republic, and even at the stage they're in now, talking about even going on further into a communistic state. That's what we're talking about. Those are revolutionary. So we got to understand here the educational program that you have to be able to figure out whether it will go on the right lines where the people will end up in a situation where they can be able to really control themselves. You understand what I'm saying? With no education, the people take this local foundation and start stealing money because they won't be really educated to why it's the people's thing anyway. You understand what I'm saying? With no education, you have neo-colonialism instead of colonialism like you got in Africa 9, like you got in Haiti. So what we're talking about is there has to be an educational program. That's very important. As a matter of fact, it's so important for us that a person has to go through 6 weeks of our political education before he can consider himself a member of the party, able to even run down ideology for the party. Why? Because if they don't have an education, then they're nowhere. You dig what I'm saying? They're nowhere because they don't even know why they're doing what they're doing. You might get people caught up in the emotionalist movement. You understand me? You might get them caught up in because they're poor and they want something. And then if they're not educated, they want more. And before you know it, they'll be capitalists. And before you know it, we have Negro imperialists.
That was, again, Chairman Fred Hampton, the founder of the Chicago chapter of the Black Panther Party, talking about the importance of education before taking action. And I do believe we are joined by our scheduled guest, Miss Johnson. Do we have you on the line?
Yes, we do.
All right. Good to speak with you. Glad that you could join us today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here.
All right. Well, I've given our listeners a little bit of background on yourself, but I would like for you to give a little bit of background on the Whitney E. Johnson Foundation that you and your husband founded and run out of New York. I think you're based in Brentwood, New York. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Yes, and so. I read the website, and I know who Whitney E. Johnson is, but can you tell our listeners who is Whitney E. Johnson and why are you honoring Whitney E. Johnson by naming your foundation after her?
Whitney E. Johnson was my husband's mother. He was the only child, and she was a very strong advocate and a God-fearing woman who believed in education. Even though she did not finish her education, she was a very avid reader, very advocate in the community, responding to the community, and she had a great purpose in encouraging the young people especially. So in her passing, we wanted to honor her by working with the community, the youth, the parents, the schools, in the communities where kids were feeling hopeless. They feel as though there's nothing left to achieve, to inspire them to continue their education and to encourage them to pursue their passion and understand their purpose and to fulfill their destiny. That's who Miss Johnson was.
Now, I have another question or a comment, but I would like for you to respond. And, it's not often that we see husband and wife teams. And so how lucky are you two to have the same passion and the same vision to be able to work together? Some people, they go to work to get away from their spouse for a time, you know what I'm saying, just to catch a little break or whatnot. So how is that working with your husband in serving the community?
Well, first and foremost, we were friends before we even embarked on a relationship and even embarked on a journey. You have to become friends before you become lovers, before you become that relationship. And you have to establish friendship. It is very important in any relationship, whether it be marriage, boyfriend and girlfriend, to understand a friendship and establish that rule of friendship and where it is going. And I'm very blessed to have my husband, who he's a business major. I'm a social worker. So it just kind of meshed together. Mm-hmm. That was very fortunate, and giving all honor and glory to God, because without him, this would not be possible.
Yes. And the reason I comment on that, I'm divorced myself. But there were things that I were interested in, like politics and stuff like that. And my spouse just wasn't interested in those things. And as I got more and more into activism and whatnot, she just didn't share the same interest in whatnot. And I think that kind of contributed. I'm not going to put it all on that, but it contributed to us growing apart because we had different interests.
It is a challenge. I'm not, nothing's easy, man.
Right.
It's not easy. It's
true.
Work. But you have to compromise. It's also about compromising and understanding what is the need of each other. And it's also about give and take. And then once you understand and you establish that and you really listen and communicate with each other, that starts the form of a bond that establishes a great working relationship as far as marriage and business as well. There are some differences. We have our differences, but you just have to iron them out, and you have to focus on what the real purpose is. What is the real purpose of the foundation? What is the real purpose of life in itself? So I find that unique, and it's a blessing. And each challenge that comes, we've decided that we're going to face it together.
Now let's talk about the focus and the mission of the Whitney E. Johnson Foundation. When was it first established? And you kind of talked about the legacy of your husband's mother, and but what was that vision? Was it based on the values that she instilled in him that he shared with you? And so when was it founded, and how did you shape your mission?
Well, originally the foundation was founded, 2011. We originally started the mentoring piece, which is called YRAP, Young Women Rising Above Perceptions, because we don't have daughters, and I never had a daughter. I wanted a daughter. So the initial thing that really triggered all of this was the start of YRAP. I wanted to mentor young ladies because, as you see, where the world is today, a lot of young people are losing their vision, losing their purpose and understanding their passion. They're losing their way between molestation, rape, sodomization, just getting into trouble, going to group homes, and single mothers, single families being raised as latchkey kids. We really wanted to help give it a focus as far as being able to communicate and to relate to the young people and help them understand who they are and what their purpose is to help them build their self-esteem. And then 2 years later, we found that the need, especially with the social behavior, the support and educational system, we wanted to broaden the horizons a little bit. So we decided that we were going to honor my mother-in-law. We started the Whitney E. Johnson Foundation. We provide academic services, mentoring, tutoring, and counseling. We encounter a lot of young people who are experiencing mental illness in the community. They're suffering from educational balance, and we're trying to equal that out by providing the tutoring. So, and we also do summer camps as well here at the local college, Suffolk Community College, where we do a 6 to 8 week summer camp where we do math, science, English, and reading comprehension, because a lot of the kids that I was mentoring, I was finding that the comprehension in writing, there was problems there. So we wanted to partner with professors here in Long Island that come to, mentor and tutor the kids, and it's been a great success. So, that is how it founded and how everything that we're doing came about and where we are today.
What are some of the biggest challenges that our young people face in today's education system? Because the education system, and I feel like rightly so, is criticized a whole lot. Earlier you talked about self-esteem education, building up self-esteem. But I have always been an avid reader since I was a young child. And, I went to a public school and whatnot, but I was reading outside of public school. So I had a little bit more information, I would say, about the true history of black people. And then as I got older, of course, I read more and found out a little more. And as I look back over my experiences, especially in high school, history was one of my favorite subjects for whatever reason. I always have had a fascination with the past. And, I went to a predominantly white school. I live in a rural area of North Carolina. And, just the history piece, it was like, the only thing that black people did was they got enslaved. That's pretty much, that was all that was taught. And so I'm looking back on that, And now knowing that what I know now, that Africans have participated in every part of building this nation, from the American Revolution to being architects to being, city planners, just every area, people activity area that you can think of, but this is hidden from us. And I was like, I can see why some black people have problems with self-esteem, because all they're taught about themselves is, hey, you got enslaved, that's how you came over here, and and that's pretty much it, and we don't learn. And so, I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that's a problem? Is that, the curriculum as it is, and I'm speaking specifically in general about, the public school system, that is contributing to that low self-esteem in children of color, because they do not teach them that history or make it a part of just American history?
I think it is all of that and more.
Okay.
Because a lot of our children are confused. The confusion herein lies of where we are in America. And not just that, but as a people. And when you don't understand the relationship of yourself, naturally you're going to be confused. And when we were growing up in the 60s, we always, I was a 60s baby, but we always had the instillment of a community, of a village. Everybody was responsible for your neighbor. And when we look at what the dynamics of the school system now, and we look at the challenges that we are facing it encompasses a lot, because when we were growing up, we had to learn to read, we had to learn to write, we had to focus on our education. It was no ifs, ands, and buts that I'm not going to go to school today, I'm going to skip school, I don't feel like going to school. And the challenge in their lives is each child learns differently.
Okay.
Males, they learn visually. They're visual. Men are visual. And some girls are visual. So then the concept of how they learn should be encompassed somehow to help our children meet those needs.
Instead of one size fit all, there should be individual education plans. That's what it sounds like you're saying.
Not so much individual, but to focus and know that child. Even though this is the educational system, we should make time for understanding, especially the parents, because I'm getting ready to go to the parents.
Okay.
Because this is where it lies within the parents. It starts at home. Now, as a parent, we should be involved with each step of our children's learning. I don't care what you're doing, 3 jobs, 5 jobs. My mother worked 2 jobs, but she was always involved in our learning. She was always at PTA. She always knew what we were doing. She always made sure that we had what we needed. So we have to go back to home. It starts in the home. And we have to understand that we are responsible for our children. We birthed them. We brought them here. We have to take some responsibility. Now, to go a step further in the educational system, we need to understand and know that we have advocates within the education system that we should take advantage of to help us understand where our children are, especially when they start labeling our children, when they don't need to be labeled. I have a problem with a child being labeled. I have a problem with parents who accept that liability and to accept, to get money for this, that, and another. You got to understand, once you label that child, he's labeled for life. Can
you talk about some of those labels? I know what you're talking about, but others may not know what you're talking about in terms of how our children get labeled by the school system. Can you speak on that? Because I think it's very important. I've heard, and he's been a guest on the program, Dr. Umar Johnson, talk about that, and I think it's very important. Can you expand upon that, those labels?
Well, this is not my expertise, but in just learning, with my son who had a learning disability, speech impediment.
Okay.
And that's one. Let's start from there. Just a basic impediment. As far as placing his tongue and pronouncing the words.
Mm-hmm.
And because he was having a challenge with that, when he went to public school, they wanted to automatically put him in special education because he would not readily respond to the teacher.
Mm-hmm.
It was inside of him, but just to get it out, they want to categorize you and put you in special education because you don't immediately respond to what they're asking you.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing is when you're having a challenge to especially take tests, there are some students who don't do paper tests but
mm-hmm.
can do a verbal test very well.
Okay.
There are some students who reading comprehension. That's a big thing, especially with minorities and African American, the comprehension piece. When they give the testing,
mm-hmm.
we need to prepare and understand that's where herein they target to find kids with disabilities. That's when they transfer, like math and science is the key thing in reading comprehension. If our children do not know how to understand what they're reading and write about it, that's another big issue in the testing. So then we have to take it a step further and do extra things that are going to push our children to excel and understand how to pick out key words, how to understand it. But it all comes back to making sure the parent is at the school,
right.
meeting with the advocates, meeting with the teachers, and having things in place to try to avert this from their children going into disabilities. That's what I'm as an advocate, trying to do.
You spoke, sometimes the motivation is, you mentioned, I can get these extra services or I can get this money if I allow mm-hmm. them to label my child, mm-hmm. as being dyslexic or whatever label they want to apply to that child. Because I heard Dr. Umar Johnson talk about that. And he was like saying, these are parents, what they're really doing is betraying their child's mm-hmm. potential for money.
Exactly. It's sad to say, and in no way am I beating anybody. Am I taking away or trying to take you or tear you down? If anything, I'm trying to build you up to acknowledge your possibilities, your opportunities that is within you so that you will inspire your child mm-hmm. to see in him his greatest potential. And until we start looking and finding ways to tap into that and teaching these single parents or these babies and babies having babies to tap into that, to see that they even have a greater potential, this is going to continue.
I would agree. I would agree with that. Tell me a little bit about Brentwood, and, is that the primary area that you all provide services for, or do you provide national service? Let me ask that first.
Well, we are going into national services, but right now we're in the Brentwood area.
Okay.
We work with courts, we work with schools, homeless shelters. We go anywhere to work with different organizations as well, because it takes a community village. I don't care what anybody tells you, the villages are on fire because it's just so many organizations out there that we do this, we do that. But until we come together collaboratively mm-hmm. and really come together with each one is doing, we got to save our villages from burning down. Let me just say that. But we work with everybody in different organizations to bring symposiums. We talk about mental health. We talk about human sex trafficking. We talk about bullying, cyberbullying. We talk about molestation. We talk about young black men that are from single homes, to teach them how to have real relationships with themselves, to have real relationships with women. We talk to young girls about how to understand yourself, build your self-esteem, and understand to respect your atmosphere in order for a man to perceive you as a woman, to respect who you are, and to tap into a relationship. We talk about all those things, how to be sociable. I mean, it's about engagement. Bottom line is pretty much about engagement and who you're engaging and how you engage them.
Now, I had never heard of Brentwood, New York, until I found out about your organization, and I started reading your website. So, what does the demographics of Brentwood look like, and what are the specific challenges that Brentwood is facing that also we may see throughout this country?
Well, the demographics is pretty much 40%, I believe, is Hispanic. 35 is African American, and Caucasian, I'm going to say, is more or less 49, somewhere in there.
Okay.
I don't know specific demographics because I just zone in on African American and Hispanic.
I understand. But it sounds like there's a pretty sizable population of people of color there.
Yes, we are the largest school district within the Long Island, here in Brentwood, New York.
Okay.
And we are facing many different challenges. Like I said, human sex trafficking is one of them. Mm-hmm. Drugs, that's a whole nother story. You got the K-9. It's so much. Molestation, rape, violence. The list goes, it's just endless. Mental health issues. Single parents, babies having babies. It's very serious. This is a very serious time for all communities because the number of suicides, it's alarming. It's very tall tale and alarming.
You are listening to Black Talk Radio News, and we are speaking with Mrs. Chevonna Johnson. She is the CEO and CFO of the Whitney E. Johnson Foundation. Again, you can find them on the web by going to, tell them your website.
www.wejfoundation.org.
And we're going to take a short station identification break, and when we will return, we will continue our conversation. If you have any questions, comments, or observations you would like to share, you can give us a call at 704-951-5030. We also have the conference line open. Greetings to those already dialed in. That telephone number is 641-715-3660. The participant code is 549032#. Anytime you would like to speak, just hit *6 and 1. We'll be right back on the other side of this short break.
This is Brother Elliot, host of Time for an Awakening, and you're listening to Black Talk Radio Network, new media for the new millennium.
Have you thought about getting into podcasting but don't know where to start? Have something to say to the world but don't know how? The popularity of podcasts and internet radio streaming continues to grow, with millions of people on the planet gaining internet connectivity through a multitude of devices. In the current media age, people can browse internet radio stations or listen to podcasts right from the dashboard of their cars. There are few barriers to anyone who wants to produce internet-based media. To encourage media production for Black people by Black people, if you are an independent Black media producer or want to become one, the nonprofit Black Talk Media Project is offering unlimited and unmetered podcast hosting services below industry pricing. Need more information about the industry and the technology? Find out how to create internet-based radio broadcasts and or podcasts at www.knowledgebase.blacktalkradionetwork.com. Again, that's www.knowledgebase.blacktalkradionetwork.com. And welcome back to Black Talk Radio News. Again, our guest today is Miss Chevonna Johnson, and she is one of the founders, along with her husband, of the Whitney E. Johnson Foundation, which is based in Brentwood, New York. Here, one of the things that really, and first, let me give a shout out to Let's Buy Black 365 and to Sister Nataki out there for introducing myself to Miss Chevonna Johnson, and I just thank you. I love the work that you all are doing, and I do understand that they have launched. They have officially launched the programs that they are putting in place to encourage people to buy black. All right. So one of the things why Miss Nataki thought that I should speak with you, Miss Johnson, is because I work in media, and you all have a media component to the Whitney E. Johnson Foundation. Not only do you have a youth magazine, but you're also involved in television, producing television programs, and as well as radio programs. You are a TV and radio personality yourself. And so tell me, how did you get into using media as a tool to reach the people with important information?
Well, first off, I give all honor and glory to God, because without Him, this would not be possible. It got to a point when we were at the foundation, the kids that would come, we just felt that we needed to really reach and talk to the parents and the youth. And in doing our research, we found that AAU Youth Magazine was born because there was not really a youth magazine that are really talking to the issues concerning today's parents and teens. And we wanted to also have a platform for the youth, so that instead of seeing the Beyoncés and the Rihannas, we want them to see their individual selves as who they are. So we started the magazine, and each quarter there are different youth that apply to be on front of the magazine that we spotlight. We spotlight their, an issue or concern, or, just them as individuals, so that they will see that they are unique in their own right. They are smart, and yet they've overcome their challenges to be where they are. So with that said, we have different writers who are coming aboard. We have Dr. Marvin Thompson from Oprah Winfrey Network. We have Sonny Slaughter, human trafficking expert, The Advocate Speaks. Asha Terry from Tom Joyner. In January the 1st, we have a new chief editor, Belinda Trotter James from Hype Hair, who's coming aboard. So this magazine has gained traction, and what we're doing to bring awareness to many different issues, many different concerns that really speak to teens and parents today, especially communicating, life, parenting tips, health. Dr. Jaleesa Hernandez from Michael Basin Show writes for us as well. So we're just very grateful how this project is shaping up and how it's, in fact, affecting people's lives.
Quick question about the AAU Youth Magazine. Is it primarily online based, or is it print, or both?
It is actually both. It is online and print.
Okay. And how could a person, obviously they can go to the website to access it, but let's say they wanted, to get it in print. How can they obtain a subscription to the magazine?
Well, they go to www.wejfoundation.org, and there is a tab where you can just put order the magazine, and they can go there to get the magazine, and it will automatically, you will be sent a code to get into the online print, and then they will receive their magazine quarterly through the mail as well. Okay.
Now, talk to us a bit about AAU Teen Talk TV and Radio. What's the vision there? How long have you all been working on that project?
Well, that project has been in effect for almost a year and some months. We started back we were invited to a television show in 2014 at madhousetv.com, and we after we got done with the TV show, my friend she said, you should do a show. And I kind of laughed at her because I said, wow, okay. So we ended up coming to do a show. It's on every Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at www.madhousetv.com. And we talk about different issues. We engage. We talk about, we had different young people come on to also be co-hosts. And that's originally, how it started out. Then I knew in my heart that we had to go a step further. So what I did was I invited some partners to come aboard with different expertise to talk about different things. So we have Corey Pegues, who talks about legalities in policing. We have Verdell Jones. She is 20 years experience in education, and she talks conversations with Verdell Jones. She talks about educational, and she talks with some celebrities as well. We have Crystal Bond. The Crystal Bond Show is all about STEM. STEM is very important. Math and science is the key. And she brings a wealth of information as well as guests to talk to parents about the importance of STEM and professional jobs in the future, going green. We have Bricks, Herman Dunham and Mr. Portwine. They talk about brotherhood, relationship, integrity, communication, knowledge, and synergy. And we just brought on Alicia Potter, who will be talking about our spiritual side with mothers, single fathers, spirituality, just brokenness. She will be coming on to speak to that piece as well. And we're very excited because we just signed with a network, and two networks actually, where you will now be able to see us not just on internet, but on cable, Comcast, anything that has cable, we're going to be on it. We'll be seen in Ghana, Puerto Rico. It's just been amazing what God is doing. Just amazing with this project.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful to hear that it's expanding like that. The Black Talk Media Project was founded basically off of one video that I watched of Malcolm X, and he was giving an interview to the American news media, and he talked about how the American news media in general can control the minds of the masses. And not only did he talk about it controlling people's minds, but he also said that it could be used in a positive fashion to educate people in areas of racism, like reprogramming racist whites not to be racist. And so, I started researching, that area, news media, as well as propaganda and its use in warfare, and as well as in society, in a white supremacist society, which I feel is warfare as well. And so I knew what it was meant for me to do. It was meant for me to get into this area of media, and I certainly do agree with him that media does control the minds of the masses more than people are willing to admit. Do you have any thoughts on his observations?
Well, Malcolm X, I have read Malcolm X, and I feel as though, yes, we should have media. We should have media and be exposed to it. Our children need to understand how to express themselves. It's about expression. Okay. And if they're not hearing their part of expression, then I always relate to youth because I deal with youth.
I understand.
And parents. And I'm, relating Malcolm X to, as far as what he was saying, we have to take that responsibility of onus of having media platforms throughout to talk about different issues. So I totally agree with Malcolm X that we have to take the responsibility, and we need to bring more platforms to understand what needs to be addressed. And we have to start to listen to what really needs to be communicated when we get these platforms, because you were given this platform for a reason. It's all about your purpose and your passion. So I totally agree with Malcolm X that we should have media platforms and that we should talk about our concerns and also listen so that we can come to common ground to how we need to pursue it. Because if you know, there are a lot of black media, there is none. There's none. When you look at television and you look at how we're portrayed and who's portraying us, that's not media. Media is keeping it real, keeping it honest, and keeping it integrity so that we know how to communicate with one another.
Right. And to illustrate that point, when you say that there is no black media, some people might say, well, what about black entertainment television? Well, you know, if you know the history of black entertainment television, you would know that Bob Johnson and I think his wife's name was Sheila Johnson, that they sold it to Viacom. Viacom is a white-dominated corporation. They did give Bob Johnson a seat, but they produce a lot of garbage media that has a very negative influence over not just youth, but people in general, in my opinion. And I heard someone not heard, but I was reading a Facebook status of someone, and it was like, is BET going to carry the presidential debates, whether it's the Republican debate or whether it's the Democratic debate? And my answer to them is no. That's not their purpose. Their purpose is to keep black folks entertained and not informed. You know, now I know it's a little bit deeper in that, you know, these networks do have to contract to get these debates and whatnot. But for the most part, you know, it is what it is. It's meant to entertain, not educate and inform. And I feel like, you know, instead of us complaining about there being a lack of this or a lack of that, or, you know, how we're being portrayed, well, then we need to turn that off, and then we need to create our own media platforms and be the media that we want to see. And I was so happy to see that you all are doing exactly that.
Well, you know, it's really, for me, it's about educating ourselves. We are responsible for that part of it. No matter what is going on in this world, we still need to educate ourselves and find out history. I cannot remember the name of the book that we had the kids read. Oh my goodness, this is bad. We had the kids read a book, had to do with slavery, the mental slavery, breaking the chains of mental slavery. I'll think of it after I get off, but it was interesting. The kids we had them read this book, and we had them talk about it. And we talked about the psychology of what they're doing now. They're not doing slavery. It's consumerism slavery. And we talked about how they focus our kids onto buying things, iPhone, $700. You know very well you got to pay your rent. And these kids are focused on material goods. That, you know, when I think about what you're talking about, I think about how that portrays in our children are more focused on the material need than the educational need for their good.
I have a point of disagreement with you, and that's okay. You know, that's why we had this platform, so we could talk about these issues and hash them out. But we do a program that comes on every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time called New Abolitionist Radio, as in plural, New Abolitionists. And the reason we chose that name is because we are part of a new abolition movement because slavery was never abolished. The 13th Amendment has an exception clause that says slavery and involuntary servitude shall be abolished except for punishment for crime where a person has been duly convicted by a jury of their peers. So this goes back to what you were talking about, reading comprehension. All right. Never in my scholastic career did we ever read the 13th Amendment. Sure, they told us that the Civil War was fought and it ended slavery and blah, blah, blah. They just had this big, you know, to do about nothing, in my opinion, in Washington, D.C., where they had a commemoration ceremony of the ratification of the 13th Amendment. But they never, when I hear these people talk about these things, they never put the text of the 13th Amendment on display. I did a YouTube video I think this was like they were commemorating the 150th anniversary of the Civil War or something like that. And a whole bunch of different media outlets were writing all these articles. And I was reading each and every one of them. And I noticed that they would only publish the first part of the 13th Amendment. Involuntary servitude and slavery shall be abolished, ... Now I'm like, it's less than maybe 15 words. Why you didn't put the entire text of the 13th Amendment? And why is this a coincidence that all of these different outlets are failing? They want to talk about the 13th Amendment, but they don't want to publish the text of the 13th Amendment. And then you got Speaker of the House, the new Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan. That's how we found out that they were going to have this commemoration of the ratification of the 13th Amendment, marking 150 years. And then so on the house.gov or the speaker.house.gov website, where he's talking about, we're going to have all of these, leaders. The president's going to come, the Democratic leaders, the Republican leaders, and other distinguished guests and whatnot. We're going to commemorate the 13th Amendment, which abolished slavery. Do you think he posted the text of the 13th Amendment? No, he did not post the text of the 13th Amendment. And, when I look up the definition of accept, and in the context of the 13th Amendment, that tells me there's an exception for slavery. All right. And so you can't claim to abolish something and then have an exception for it. Under these circumstances, we'll get rid of slavery except for under these certain circumstances. A good book that people should read. It also was made into a documentary, and I'm trying to get the author of the book on a program to interview him about it. But it's called Slavery by Another Name, and it documents after the Civil War, after the so-called, after the enslaved Africans were so-called emancipated, that then there was a rise in prison slavery, that they passed these laws to target those newly freed African people. It's known as the Black Codes, and a lot of people call that period Jim Crow. And of course, black people weren't on these juries or anything like that, so it was no problem convicting them of these unjust laws. And the whole purpose is to get them in the prisons. And then they had what they call prison convict leasing program, where then, you just got freed from this plantation. Guess what? Now you're in jail. Now you're in prison. And now that plantation owner can lease you and bring you right back on his plantation, or we'll use you to build the railroad across America and connect the Pacific coast to the Atlantic coast. Or you can go work in this mine and do this dangerous work, mining coal, mining gold, mining silver, and what? It's still slavery, but by another name. And so, that is one of my pet peeves right there, is educating people to the fact that slavery has never been abolished. The 13th Amendment makes that clear to me, with my reading comprehension, which I think is pretty good. I've tested pretty well in reading comprehension. And that, a lot of people mistakenly believe that every African descended person on this continent was brought here in chains, or they were at one time were enslaved. In the 1850s, there was a population of 500,000 free black people who had never been enslaved. Maybe some of them, a very small percentage of them, had somehow obtained their freedom, whether they hit the lottery and purchased their freedom or whatnot, or some quote-unquote benevolent master on his deathbed put in his will, I'm a free, old Joe or whoever. But the vast majority of those 500,000 free black people had never been enslaved. And so I think that we tend to think that was the case, that all of us were enslaved. And so then when we see today, well, every black person obviously is not in prison. So, that can't be slavery because we're not all on the chain gang and working for Walmart or AT&T or whatever corporation that's using prison slave labor today. So I know I went on a little mini rant there, and you can tell I get very passionate about that. And it's not that I'm being critical of anyone, because I believe the same thing up until about 4 or 5 years ago when I happened to, for whatever reason, whether it was the creator putting it in my spirit, to look up the 13th Amendment. And I looked it up and I saw that big old exception clause, and I was like, wow. You know, like I said yesterday on Facebook, Hitler was right about the big lie theory. If you tell a big lie and you tell it often enough, the people will believe it. And I think that's what's going on with slavery. Do you have any response to that? And I wasn't trying to, criticize you or chastise you or anything like that. I just wanted to present my view on whether or not slavery still exists.
Well, no, I mean, I'm not criticizing. And I agree. I think that our children and our parents, especially our teens, should understand we have to read everything. In order to be educated, you have to educate yourself. That means to read everything. We had Rick Ross on our show, and I found it compelling.
Which one?
The real Rick Ross.
The real Rick Ross, not the fake one.
That's what he calls himself. It was amazing to me because it was then that he was awakened. And he said he'd never read a book till he got to prison.
Okay.
It was then that he went into the prison library and started reading and educating himself to understand law, to understand the system. And we should not have our children go to prison to understand the system.
Right.
I do believe that we all need to educate ourselves on all the laws, even the 13th Amendment. Our children should read that. By no means, that was just a book that we chose because we were starting at a starting point. Because we need to educate them as well to understand what is happening, what is coming. By all means, I believe that we should be educated, and our children should be educated on every piece of history. I say that because you need to know yourself. You need to understand your enemy. In order to do that, you have to read and you have to study and understand yourself and your enemy.
And what you talked about, what got me to talking about slavery, yes, consumerism is a form of mental slavery. And the way we tie it into slavery is to say, well, do you know that there are Fortune 500 companies out there that are using prison slave labor, that they will hire these people? I made a meme on Facebook. Jake from State Farm ain't really sitting in no cubicle. Jake from State Farm is sitting on the prison farm answering them phone calls for State Farm, which does use prison slave labor. All right. And so, but when you purchase certain products and you're not conscious of how these products are being made or who's providing that customer service and whatnot, and then, you are in effect supporting slavery. Now, I'm not saying, you don't know what you don't know, but once you do know, you have a responsibility to act on what you do know. And as much as I can, as much as possible, I try not to do business with any company that's still practicing slavery and using prison slave labor, because they will have those people answering phone calls for customer service or picking fruit or vegetables and doing all of this type of work, processing meat, poultry, and fish. But then when they get out of jail, when they get out of prison, oh, we can't hire you because you got a felony status. Oh, but you ain't have a problem hiring me when I was in prison. So, consumerism does tie into both mental slavery as well as physical slavery, in my opinion. So I just wanted to say that is important to teach our youth that, consumerism is just a way to drain you of your resources, to get you buying all of this stuff that you do not need, and then you don't have the resources to get the things that you do need.
Exactly. We have a financial show that we're going to be bringing in 2016 because we need to learn as well the importance of financial, the financial aspect of saving for the future and creating to have that balance of understanding your opportunities, especially exploring college options with things the way that they're going today. Is very crucial that we understand what it means to build our portfolios. That's for parents and youth as well.
Again, I want to thank you for your time today. I do want to ask you one last question as we get ready to wrap up this interview. And I understand if you haven't had enough time to do research on this, but you know, No Child Left Behind was a major issue, especially in the black community that was, put in place during the Bush administration. Well, it appears that they have repealed No Child Left Behind and that they are now implementing something else. And I'm still trying to get more information on this, but I just want to ask you, what do you know about it, or do you need more time to research this replacement for No Child Left Behind?
I am currently doing some research on it, but when I heard No Child Left Behind, you knew from the jump, and anybody else, that no Child Left Behind meant that your child, African American child, was going to be left behind. And unless we do something to take responsibility for education, I'm going to say this. We need to take that responsibility to do what we all can as a community village, to bring even our elders, our senior citizens who are teachers, bring them together to different community centers to start helping our children understand math, science, and reading, to help those that are in need, that have been left behind, left out, or just felt discouraged and felt that there was no need to go to school. We need to really come together to understand the possibilities. And unless we start teaching ourselves and our children and pushing them harder and pushing ourselves harder to understand where things are now, especially with Common Core. Now, when with the No Child Left Behind Act, it really disturbed me to a point because it doesn't allow for certain things. It doesn't allow for your child to really to receive all that he deserves to receive, especially in education. Now, then we had Common Core, which was testing. Test. And we know what the testing does. That's why we have more prisons that are being built today, that have been built. And, it was amazing to me because not only are the prisons being built, and not only is it male dominated now, it is female dominated.
Yes, ma'am.
There are more females going to prison now for just having a child and saying, you were the father and they were not the father. So any little thing, just for being a single female. And they're doing that because of the womb of we won't go there. It's time.
I know what you're saying. They are trying to enslave the entire black family. We were just talking about that. We reported on that last night, and it wasn't the first time we reported on it. But black women are the fastest growing percentage of the incarcerated today. They are the fastest growing demographic in America. And we just said, hey, and then we looking at the youth also, youth detention facilities and whatnot. We had that horrible story come out of Pennsylvania with the two judges getting kickbacks to sell these kids into send them to this youth detention facility that was paying them under the table to do so. And so, we look at that as, again, this is just more, they're getting bolder and bolder and more aggressive in trying to re-enslave all of us. It's the way we look at it. But I'm glad you mentioned that, females are I shouldn't say females, women are increasing.
Women.
Yes, African American women are an increasing demographic that is being targeted for incarceration on these prison plantations.
That is so true, and it's spiritual too. Well, we won't go there.
Okay.
But it's been a pleasure. It has been a pleasure talking with you and your listeners, and I appreciate this opportunity to be on your show and your platform, and I look forward to speaking with you again.
Well, I certainly, as you find out more information, just for the listeners, information, the bill that, the law, it's actually a law now, that replaced No Child Left Behind is called the Every Student Succeeds Act. It was signed into law last week by President Obama. Again, I do not have a whole lot of information on this, and I will be reaching out to people to come on and better inform us about that. So Ms. Johnson, as soon as you finish doing your research on it, I would appreciate it if you would come back and share what you learned with me and our listeners.
It will be a pleasure. And again, thank you so much for this opportunity.
Yes, ma'am. You have a blessed day.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, that concludes our interview. I do want to, well, actually, no, I don't. For those who do follow, who are interested in learning how to become Black media producers, I uploaded a new tutorial video today. I'm going to start putting them on our Facebook page, Black Talk Media Project, but they are also on the knowledge base.blacktalkradionetwork.com. I just uploaded a 20-minute tutorial on podcast production from start to finish. So please take advantage of the resources that we try to provide to you to be the media that you want to see. Let's stop complaining. Let's stop complaining about CNN this and Fox News that, or BET this, or what MTV that. Look, technology is enabling us to bypass the mainstream media and to become the media that we want to see. We also want to encourage you to visit the Whitney E. Johnson Foundation online at wejfoundation.org. With that said, people, recognize the fact that we live behind enemy lines. This place is being run by a corporation called USA Inc. It incorporated in 1871. They are still involved in slavery. They are involved in colonialism, imperialism, whatever you want to call it. All right. And so, also, I do agree with some activists who said the way that the police are policing our communities isn't really policing at all. It's really they are colonizing our communities. And so it's a battlefield out there. And so that you don't become one of those casualties, so that you don't become a new slave in the 21st century, you need to develop battlefield awareness, battlefield skills, so that you can avoid those traps, those pitfalls. Now, there's no guarantee. There's no 100% foolproof method that I can tell you or point you to that will prevent that from happening to you, but you can lessen the likelihood that it happens to you or your children or somebody you love. We have to be proactive and not reactionary. I will be back on air tomorrow. Tomorrow's Friday. Yes, I don't take holidays off. We do have a guest scheduled for you tomorrow. We have a guest that wants to come on and talk about some of their research on the Bible and that illustrates or undermines the white supremacist Bible stories that's out there. And so we'll put more information up about that. So we'll be speaking with that person tomorrow. I don't have the information up in front of me, so that's why I can't tell you their name. But stay tuned to Black Talk Radio Network. You can subscribe to blacktalkradionetwork.com, and you will get an email of every single post that comes out. And, you know, it's not like we're posting 100 articles or blogs or anything like that a day, so you won't be getting spam. But if you want to keep up with the work that we do, the work of our media partners, and when they have an upcoming broadcast or a podcast coming up, go ahead and subscribe. Go ahead and subscribe to the website, and you can get those delivered to your email. You can also follow us on Twitter. That's at Black Talk Radio. That's on Twitter, at Black Talk Radio. Also follow our Facebook page, Black Talk Radio Network .com. It's Black Talk Radio Network on Facebook. All right, I will be back on air tomorrow and then Sunday night working on a guest. There's some big news concerning Mumia Abu-Jamal's case against the Pennsylvania Department of Correction, in how they have been denying him treatment for the Hep C virus, which is pretty much a pandemic in the prison system. And this case could have wider implications in providing access to health care and certain treatments for curable diseases now that these prisons across this country have been withholding from the prisoners. And so there have been some really big developments in that case. We have been sharing some of those updates on our Facebook page, Political Prisoner Radio, but we'll go more in depth, and we are trying to get some guests on of some people involved in that case that is ongoing right now. So that'll be 9:00 p.m. Eastern Time, Political Prisoner Radio on Sunday night. Y'all be safe out there. All right. Enjoy your family, enjoy your friends as you have this time off, as most people have time off from work right now, you know, because family is everything. Family is the reason that we fight. Family is the reason that we do everything that we do. And we're talking about not just our blood family, but our entire family. Peace and blessings to all.
Playback.
Sound of a fucking drummer. Music hitting your heart, 'cause I know you got a soul.